Hi, this is Gilbert Gottfried, and this is Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Frank Santopadre, and once again, we're recording at Nutmeg with our engineer, Frank Verderosa.
And our trusty researcher, Paul Rayburn. Now, Paul, I forget...
Is that what he does?
That's what he does.
Yeah.
He also likes to keep us company.
Yes.
He's a buffer between you and me.
Yeah. Michael Corleone had a lot of buffers.
A lot of buffers, Senator. So, Paul, at the end of every episode, I keep forgetting your plug. You've been here, you're faithful, you're loyal, and you have a book. And this time I'm going to open the episode with your plug. We've mentioned your book before, but tell us again.
So it's called The Game Theorist's Guide to Parenting.
Yes, sir.
And it's a way to do a better job of negotiating with your children so that they don't always win and you don't always lose.
Right.
And it's been tested in the home of a certain Gilbert Gottfried.
You don't say.
I do say.
And how does that work?
Both of my kids are in prison now.
Well, there's a testimonial.
Wonders.
Yeah.
Fantastic. How was it test-driven in the Gottfried home?
We talked about the book, and Gilbert said that he had negotiated with his children over M&Ms.
I remember.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah, because Lily was playing him.
And right, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
and where can people get this book, Paul?
At bookstores everywhere, Amazon, Barnes & Noble.
What's a bookstore?
Yes.
I'm so moved by this that I'm choking up.
That's okay.
This week.
I thought you were dying. I was getting really excited.
The time is finally come.
Camille. So here is an interesting theme. It's not really a theme. It's a premise.
If it was a theme, I'd sing it. Yeah.
And by the way, your rendition of "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch" made us all very, very happy.
Yes, it's what Christmas is all about.
I think so. This is our last episode of 2016.
Wow.
And I don't know how we did it. When we started this show, Gilbert thought we were going to do 4 of these and go to the movies and call it a day.
Yeah, I remember we did our first one.
We did.
I won't say with who.
People know now.
Yeah.
You still don't have to say what it's.
But I remember we were all sitting in a pizzeria afterwards. Yeah. I won't say pizza store, which I always say. And
it was a pizza store.
And I was basically saying, all right, well, we tried that.
Yeah. Darren and I were profoundly depressed.
Yeah.
But we tried a second one with Dick Cavett. The rest is history. And we have done, counting the mini episodes, the Whoopi Goldberg episode, which went up today, 132 of these puppies.
Oh, yeah.
How have we done it?
Yeah.
How have you maintained your energy?
Oh, I don't know.
And your breath. And your lung capacity. Well, I'm going to do 2016 in review. We started, our first episode of 2016 was Bobby Slayton, the pit bull of comedy, who was sitting here telling us about his horror film collection. Then we did, of course, a George Zucco, Gene Hackman tribute, because everybody has to have one on their podcast. And then episode 85, which we put up in January, was one of your favorites and mine. You managed to wrangle the legendary Bruce Dern.
Yes, I had met him, I think, on Opie's show.
On the Opie and Jim.
And it turns out he was a fan of mine.
Yeah.
He said something like, if you're describing one word, it's courage.
Really?
And yes, something like that.
Interesting.
Great compliment from Bruce Dern.
Yeah, it was one of those calls, Dara saying, I think we got Bruce Dern, and I couldn't believe that we got such a name.
And Bruce Dern, he was talking about how he's not a big druggie.
Not at all. He was clean.
Yeah.
He was a runner.
And Nicholson was trying to force a joint into Bruce Dern's mouth.
Correct.
And he goes, come on, you'll feel better. Oh, he goes, take a puff, you'll feel good. And he goes, I do feel good. And he goes, feel better.
And we learned what a Dernsey was.
A Dernsey,
on that episode, and he was a champ.
And his memory is better than any computer.
Yeah.
He could tell you what the key grip on a movie is, name and address.
You bet.
And what he ate for lunch.
You were present for that one, Paul.
What was funny about that? That's just what I was going to say. Not only do we have a guy of his stature, but we're doing it on the Gottfried dinner table.
Correct.
With Dara Gottfried as the
Yes,
engineer
that's
before
right.
before we hooked up with Frank.
Right.
That's why we still have that one. Yeah, that's why it hasn't. That's why we're not going around saying, "Hey, we interviewed Bruce Stern." They go, "No, you didn't."
I'd like to reiterate that Frank Verderosa was not the man responsible for the lost audio in the lost episodes.
That's what you say.
Yes. Then we did episode 86, which we put up in January of January 21st and he was right here in this room, the great Dominic Chianese.
Oh my!
And he serenaded
God.
us from the chair Paul was sitting in right now.
That was one of the great. Believe it or not, there were actually some tender moments in this
There
show.
were.
And
Yeah,
that was the tenderest right there.
That
I
brought a
think.
tear to
Yeah,
my
it
eye,
was
that
incredible.
episode.
But
Yeah.
brother, can you spare a dime?
Wasn't
He
that
sang.
Oh, man.
Once I built a railroad, I made it run, I made it race against time. Once I built a railroad, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime? Once I built a tower to the sun, brick and rivet and lime. Once I built a tower, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime?
With the Italian song, how like some of these great moments get lost after the show is stopped recording. We were out in just like the regular sitting area, and that's playing him singing the Italian song, and he's narrating it in English. And that was amazing.
It was wonderful. That may have been one of my favorite episodes because it had everything in it. I mean, he got poignant when he was talking about Gandolfini and the two songs. The Yip Harburg song, "The Brother, Can You Spare a Dime," was a highlight in the history of this show.
Yeah.
It was a great moment. That was followed by maybe my favorite mini episode. Where
that was my idea for him to sing "Brother, Can
Yes,
You
it
Spare a
was.
Dime?"
Very
Because
good.
I knew this guy could really do it.
It's like he lived that thing.
Yeah.
you know.
That was just a special.
Oh, he was great.
Special
Great.
episode. The mini episode that we broke out after that, mini episode 43. I was talking about Richard Lester. I didn't know where you were going to go, and you started just out of the blue talking about Bob Hope specials, and that was the episode
Yes!
where we introduced Jack Frost,
Oh, yeah.
which became a runner.
Yes.
That is
Jack Frost is one of the most unintentionally frightening
Yes.
TV shows you'll ever see.
It's become a staple of the
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
In fact, if you go to YouTube and you look it up, people, there's under the comments it says Gilbert sent me here.
Yeah.
By the dozen.
Way up north by the polar sea, where it's just as cold can be. Old Jack Frost awoke one morn from a long, long sleep, and he said with a yawn,
Ho hum, the time has come to freeze the trees and roses. And when that's done, I'll have some fun, nipping little toes and noses.
Jack Frost ate a dish of icicles too. Jack Frost ate a glacier pie or two. Jack Frost topped it off with an igloo brew. He's cold as ice.
but he's so nice.
After that, we had our pal George Takei at the Friars Club.
Oh, my God, yes.
Episode 87.
Yeah.
That was a great one. And he had just come from a visit to the throat doctor. He was on stage, and he was doing his Broadway show
yes.
about internment camps. And you made him do something from...
Oh, I had him do.
Shylock from Richard of
I
Venice?
had him do Shylock doing "Hath Not a Jew Hide."
The poor man could barely speak.
Yeah.
He spoke warmly about his deep friendship with William Shatner.
That was fun.
Oh God, yes.
We love George to death. The following mini episode, you introduced the world to your love of skeleton nags. You like to call them skeleton canags.
Yeah, I still call him Skeleton Cun. He looks like a Canags.
Right. We had Joe Dante after that, who was terrific, and we had that whole discussion about whether or not you could order monkeys in the mail.
Oh,
when you
yes,
were a kid.
yes.
And he disputed that was
and
that
it's
was a thing.
true.
But
Yep.
we found it. That's
And
right.
and they would send you either diseased or dead monkeys.
Oh, my God.
They were just it traumatized children.
This show is nothing but educational. The following mini-ep was once again Bob Hope's Joys.
Oh God!
You pulled that out of mothballs, and that became an obsession for a while. And people found it. People sent it to me. Everybody was in that. Well, a couple of podcast guests turned up in that one.
Oh,
like Storch and Marty Allen. Look for that episode. Episode number 90, which we put up on February 15th. Maybe Gilbert's favorite episode. You were certainly the most touched or the most excited to do this episode, and that was you paying a visit to the legendary Dick Van Dyke.
Oh my
at his
God!
house in Malibu.
Yeah. And at first they weren't answering us. It seemed like they
it wasn't looking good for a while.
No.
Well, Dick was in New York and we missed him, and then you were crushed.
And then they and I was doing jokes about it, his wife being a quarter of his age and all that. And then they not only invited us, but invited us to come into his house.
Yeah, he was a sport.
And we sang 2 duets together.
Yep.
It's supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, even though the sound of it is something quite atrocious. If you say it loud enough, you'll always sound precocious. It's supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Then you gotta go
And he said, like, on the TV show, Maury Amsterdam was Buddy Sorrell.
Sure.
And he said to me, he goes, you would have made a good buddy on
That's
the show.
nice. So you were told by Dick Van Dyke that you would make a good Buddy Sorrell. You were told by Adam West that you would have made a good Penguin.
Yes.
See, aren't you glad you started this show?
Yeah, yes.
Aren't you glad we made it out of the pizza store?
If only producers thought the same thing.
If only our audio was preserved. Episode 94 was our pal Belzer.
Oh,
Richard
yes,
Belzer.
yes, a lot of fun.
He told that great story. Any Jews in there?
Oh, yeah.
Liza Minnelli wants some juice, some orange juice. You don't know what I'm talking about. Episode 94. Check
that was
it out.
a very funny episode.
Cliff Nesterman made his first visit on
Cliff
March
Navel
24th. Episode 96, which we put up in March, the legendary Pat Cooper was here.
Pat Cooper, out of his mind, and is the best kind of guest to have.
Yeah, he was right here in this room.
I mean, there was nothing. It took no work.
Did we say anything?
We didn't say a fucking word. We just kind of sat there and let him scream.
Paul, were you here
hour.
for that one?
I was not here for.
Yeah.
No, I was not here.
Yeah, that was
I
legendary.
listened to it, but yeah.
Well, after we lost Jack Carter and we realized we didn't have an episode, I turned to Gil and I said, "What about Pat Cooper?" And we called Pat. He had just come out of from the doctor's office.
Yeah.
And sure, and he showed up and he sat down. He's pushing. He's got to be 90.
Oh my God!
Or close
and
to it.
He's just filled with anger and everything.
But also the man brought it.
Oh,
It's just
he
an automatic
did.
interview.
He absolutely did. And I mean, we didn't have a chance to say hello on that one.
I was afraid of him.
Yeah.
Even at his age.
The amazing thing is, as dumb as I'm supposed to be growing, because we had no show business people in my house, and I spotted something. I said, why are the Jewish men funny? And I said, and because there was nobody else but the great ones, all Jewish comics. I fucking loved them. I said, and then I found out simple. It's in the genes. And they have an automatic rhythm. And when you learn from that, rhythm is so important as a comic to get that wave and that groove and that groove. It's like going to hearing a jazz artist, and I adored all of them. All of them. And I would go home and get my mother and father beat the shit out of me. I would sit through, 6, 7 shows of Red Buttons or Jan Murray's, and then they came to my house when I worked Vegas, and I'm going, I fucking couldn't believe it. And they're looking up to me like, I'm the new guy. I'm going, I'm Berlin, these kind of guys. I said, Pat, you did something nobody did. I said, what? I didn't know what the fuck I did.
Michael McKean did episode 97. That was wonderful. He refused to sing with you. That
Oh,
was memorable.
yes.
Yes.
Because he knew I sang better than him.
Yeah, that must be it. We love Michael to death, and you also reminded him on numerous occasions that you had never seen This is Spinal Tap.
Never saw it.
That endeared him to you.
Yes.
You to him, I mean. Episode 98, we had the great Ileana Douglas.
Yes. Who said that she wanted to fuck Marlon Brando
She did.
even when he was 500 pounds.
She did. Yeah. Which you repeated to the audience at the film forum. When we were
Yes.
introducing the
Yes.
comedy.
So you're saying I have a chance?
That's what we said. Nice work, Frankie. We love Ileana. We got to get her back.
And I told Ileana when I was at a screening of Goodfellas.
Oh, yes.
And they were trying to kick me out of the Museum of Modern Art. Yeah, that's like, I don't know. For some reason, they didn't know who I was, or maybe they did.
Well, she said Scorsese was a fan of yours.
Oh, he is. And you could tell by all the Scorsese films. I mean.
You were great as Maury.
Yeah. The one Jew character in a Scorsese film.
Well, we should ask Marty to come in. Marty, like I know the man.
Yeah.
We should ask Martin Scorsese to come and do the show
Well,
if he's such a fan of yours.
Next time I talk to Bobby De Niro,
Okay. We'll see what we can do.
maybe Dusty Hoffman can.
Dusty.
Like he just
I
came
love
off
it.
the trail.
And R.J. Wagner.
Oh, yes, yes.
The episode after that, one of my favorites, Mark Hudson.
The Mark Hudson one,
Yeah.
we were like in the kitchen area.
Here at Nutmeg. We didn't know what we were going to get out of Mark.
And he walked in, and before we were anywhere near a mic, he told us about 10 of the most insane, dirty stories.
Unrepeatable stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, completely.
Unfortunately.
And we can't repeat the names of the people he was mentioning.
Because we would spend a lot of time in court.
It's like another lost segment there.
I'll tell you. Take Gilbert and I out and get us drunk. Mark walked in. Jackie Martling had recommended Mark Hudson.
Yes.
I was a big Hudson Brothers fan, and I knew he'd work with Ringo and all these people. I said, that guy's got to be a storyteller. But we didn't know. He was an automatic. He was like the guest you would make in a lab. Episode 102, another favorite of ours, and this was just a wonderful surprise, the great Peter Marshall.
Peter Marsh, terrific. Also, great memory.
Yeah. 90, another 90-year-old, and sharp as hell.
Yes.
And had stories at the ready, and also settled the, got the Paul Lynde story about the Gold Diggers dressing room.
I still say cunt.
You still like your version?
Yes.
Episode 103, Orson Bean came and abused us.
Oh, yeah.
That was fun. Let's see. Episode 105, and this was a great one. This had our favorite sing-along, Tony Orlando.
Oh, my God. Tony Orlando
What a treat.
was great.
What a treat.
Take your time. Okay, baby. You're coming up any second now. Go for it, Gilbert.
I'm coming home. I've done my time. Now I've got to know what is and isn't mine. If you receive my letter telling you I'd soon be free, then you'll know just what to do.
Hurry!
If you still want me.
Get to it.
If you still want me.
I'm so impressed.
Tie a yellow ribbon round the old oak tree. It's been 3 long years. Do you still
let me sing for a
want
minute?
me?
If I don't see a ribbon round the old oak tree, I'll stay on the bus. Forget about us. Put the blame on me. Go ahead. If I don't see
a yellow ribbon round
the old oak tree. Why am I sounding like you?
He's everything you want Tony Orlando to be.
He is, again, like Mark Hudson, and which is why we have to get more musicians on the show. Everything you want in a podcast guest.
Oh,
It's like,
he
walk
was.
him in, sit him down, bang. The stories, the songs.
And although Tony Orlando is not, in fact, a Jew. He's kind of an honorary Jew because his father worked in the garment center, and I think they used to call either him or his father Ladle.
Something. Yeah, label.
Yeah.
Or label.
Label.
It was label because he was in the garment district.
And and he's buried. His father is buried in a Jewish cemetery.
Yep.
Wow.
Tony is a treat and
He
a sweet
was
guy.
great.
And check out episode 105 with Tony Orlando. You won't be sorry. 106, we brought back our pal Dick Cavett for a live show
Yeah, Dick-
at the New York Podfest.
Dick's another one that you could leave and go to the movies, and he'll just have stories to fill
A
up.
sweet guy who paid me a great compliment that night that I will never forget, which was lovely of him. And he patiently waited in sweltering heat in the back room that we were in the green room for 2 hours. You were there that night, Paul.
Yeah, I was there.
And he was a champ, and he got so warm at one point he took his shirt off. And he did the podcast in his T-shirt.
Yes,
And somebody
yes.
on Facebook said, "Why is Dick Cavett in his undershirt?" he just auditioned for Streetcar.
He felt right at home,
What a
apparently.
lovely man. 2 episodes he's done this show. We just call him. He's an automatic. I love that guy to death. Episode 107, Gilbert and I were treated to the great Peter Bogdanovich,
Oh, yes.
who had stories and stories about Hitchcock, about Ford. That was
Oh,
great.
yeah.
That's when I realized we had a guest who was actually too classy for the show.
I know. And one who I was in a movie that he directed. I never made it to the final cut, but it was the terrible
Yes.
last of the Gene Wilder, Richard Pryor films.
That's it. Well, we were thrilled that
But,
Peter
he was terrific.
agreed to do this.
And a great storyteller.
Episode 109, the late, great Marvin Kaplan.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah, we lost Marvin. He was wonderful. We called him up. He was an automatic. You had talked to him beforehand.
Yes, and what got me, that was so great. I wish I had recorded my off mic phone calls with him, because that's who he was. He was that kind of character.
Yeah.
And
Remember we called him, we had everything set up. We were here at Nutmeg, and Frankie got everything set up, and we called, and we got his answering machine.
oh yes, it was terrific.
Fantastic.
I still have that recording. We didn't throw it out.
Oh,
Yeah.
we'll have to throw that in. We'll have to add
Yeah.
that in post. That's a
And-
wonderful thing to
And
have.
he was asking us stuff like, well, do I have to dress up for it?
Yeah.
He was terrific.
Frisbee from The Great Race,
Oh yes.
and the gas station attendant whose name escapes me, Arnold Stang's
Yes,
colleague. From
and they
Mad Men.
get chased, terrorized by Jonathan Winters.
What a wonderful guy.
He was terrific, just lovable guy,
Yeah.
and he was discovered by Katharine Hepburn.
He was.
and- yeah,
He was. He was not a household name, Marvin, but he did so much work, and Top Cat, of course, and he was in the Chicago Teddy Bears.
Oh, yeah.
With Art Matrano, and just a wonderful career. And I have some friends at Brillstein Gray that just called me up and said, we just love the Marvin Kaplan episode.
Yeah,
they fell madly in love with it.
Oh yeah.
Because he kept reminiscing about people, and then he would say, I loved him.
Yes, yes.
I loved him. We loved Marvin, and we miss him. Amy Heckerling, episode 110.
yes.
And the return of Amy Heckerling's babysitter.
Yes, that's the one I abused to no end. I would make, I would tell her how much I wanted to have sex with Amy Heckerling's daughter, who at the time I think was 3.
You sick
Yeah,
individual.
and I started doing Nazi jokes to her. You know, it was
That was a Howard Stern staple.
Yeah,
that bit,
they
yeah.
always played that.
Yeah.
Me abusing Amy Heckerling's German Jewish babysitter.
She was a good sport. She came
Yeah.
here anyway. We're fans of Amy. John Biner, episode 111.
terrific.
Maybe in the running for my top 3 episodes. That was
Yeah.
a flawless episode. We did that here, and John was on Skype.
And he just came on ready to perform.
Just brought it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the highlight of that episode for me was dueling Paul Williams.
Oh yes, yes.
Rainy days and Mondays always get me.
done. Talking to myself and feeling old.
I'm feeling old.
Sometimes I'd like to quit.
I'd like to quit.
Nothing ever seems to fit.
And I don't give a shit. Okay, no round. Nothing to do but frown.
Rainy days and Mondays always get me down. We did Dueling Paul Williams, me and John Biner, and we sent it, or I called Paul Williams, and he left a message on my machine.
Oh, you didn't tell me this.
Yeah. Paul Williams then called me back, and I got a message, and he loved it. He was he couldn't even speak. He was laughing, remembering it.
Wow, that's nice. We love Paul. We got to get Paul back at some point.
Oh, he's terrific guest.
The Biner episode 111 is just perfect, and he hasn't lost a step.
And with Paul Williams on that episode, I sang both Rainbow Connection in a duet with him and Nice to Be Around.
You did. That was a great one. But that was just, you love this guy as a kid. You haven't heard from him in a while. You wonder if it's all still there. And just, hey, come on, a little of the ant and the aardvark, and he's doing it.
Oh, yes.
And he told that great Cagney story, visiting Jimmy Cagney.
With a great Cagney
The best
imitation.
Cagney. John Biner, for me, is just flawless, just peerless. Episode 112, and this was a fun one. Dick DeBartolo and Al Jaffe.
Oh, yes.
And we got to hear about Dick's game show experiences and his experiences at Mad, but also Al's fascinating life and sad life.
Yeah,
and that's a poignant one.
They were escaping from, was it Lithuania?
Yeah, I think so. I think his mother didn't make it to the train in time, and the train pulled away, and he was going back to America to live with his father, and as it turns out, he never saw his mother again.
And I think he said out of the window he saw his mother show up.
Here's a man who's 90 plus.
He's 95, I believe.
And he's remembering something that was 90 years ago.
I have to say, for this show, we've been fortunate. The 90-year-olds and the 80-somethings,
amazing
and they all come
memories.
in here and just Peter Marshall and Dick Van Dyke and Roger Corman.
Oh yes,
and Al, and just automatics, and boom, there it is.
It's really. I'm not kidding. It might sound like it, but some of these things should be like in the Smithsonian. I mean, these people are talking about things that's a huge part of our cultural history that they haven't said anywhere else.
Yes. Yes.
And when he was talking about like escaping from Lithuania and his mother's not making it to the train, and I thought, and this is a guy famous for making people laugh.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the parallel that you drew. Yeah. He's a wonderful guy, Al. I'm so blessed. I've been writing for Mad on and off for about 20 years, and to meet those guys, to meet Drucker and Aragonis and I never met Jack Davis, but Paul Coker, the great Paul Coker, illustrated a piece I did. And to know Al, to get to know him, has been a thrill. Yeah. Really, really an honor. And speaking of poignant episodes, episode 114, and this one blew Gilbert away, Sonny Fox.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
When he was coming on, I remember Wonderama, and I thought he was going to have some fun stories about kids saying the darndest things, or maybe a kid wetting their pants during the show. And he was a prisoner of war.
Yes, indeed.
Held by like the Nazis, and they were held in a train car.
That's right.
Like shoved in together, I think.
For weeks.
30-something.
Can't remember if you would go back and
it was a car made for like 10 people.
Yeah.
And
he survived a lot of hardships. Yeah. And those stories were riveting. We couldn't.
God!
And he's the only guest I think that has teared up on the show, unless you want to count Steve Buscemi's Tears of Regret.
Oh yes, but I remember he told a story about how the German officers said they have to come out of the train and the Jews have to fall out.
Yeah.
And their sergeant, who was not a Jew, said to them, "We all fall out."
Yeah.
And he said, and the sergeant stood up to the German officer and said, All of Us Are Jews.
It was a Spartacus moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so there were chilling and tearful moments in that. He was great.
A terrific guest. That was followed by legendary character actor Dick Miller.
Yes.
Who was colorful and fun, and had his wife Elaine at his side. And we love Dick, and he told a great monkey story. We like monkey stories. On this
yes.
show.
and he was like one of those. He was in a documentary called That Guy,
Dick Miller.
And he's one of those That Guy actors.
Yep. Episode 116, Matthew Broderick was kind enough to come over here. And bless his heart, he came across town. He had a show that night.
He was doing a play.
He had a show that afternoon and at night.
Yeah. And with that brief space, he sped up in a cab over here. And the first thing I said to him is how much I hated Ferris Bueller.
Because you really know how to warm up a guest and welcome a
but
guest.
He was a terrific guest.
A wonderful guest. And I kept trying to mitigate it as fast. We loved election. We loved it.
Yes. But it did show, I did say what a good actor he really is, in that every time Ferris Bueller's on, I hate him. Because I believe that's him.
Yep.
But then I hear him in these other movies where he's playing like this nebbish.
Yeah.
And both are convincing.
He's good in a lot of films, in films that have flown under the radar, too. A movie called The Night We Never Met. You Can Count on Me. A handful of films. He really does.
Oh, You Can Count on Me was the banker.
Love that film.
Yeah.
It was made by his buddy, Kenneth Lonergan. But even in pictures that don't work very well, like The Road to Wellville, he's always solid.
Yeah.
You know? Anyway, we were thrilled that we got Matthew Broderick to come over here between gigs. So thank you, Matthew. You're a sport. Episode 117, maybe our most bizarro episode, and that's our friend Jonathan Katz.
Oh.
Dr. Katz, Frankie V's favorite. What can you say?
Yeah,
I love that man.
He was like with Jonathan Katz. He'll tell these stories that are just totally mixed up and dragged out, and they end completely flat.
Yep, that's part of his appeal.
Yeah, and after a while of hearing these stories, I just totally lost it and could not stop laughing.
I know.
He was trying to tell stories, and I was just screaming.
Yeah. What's great is he called me like 12 times during the week before that episode to run those stories by me. He kept saying, John, anything you want. I assume they had endings.
And I'm not the only fan. I was listening to another podcast recently, and they had Michael Shannon, you know, the actor.
Oh, sure, from Zod.
He was on it, and he starts the episode by talking about he doesn't watch a lot of TV, but the only thing he really likes is Dr. Katz.
Yeah.
And he, particularly Dr. Katz and John Benjamin.
They're
great.
With Dr. Katz, it's at the end where I completely lose it, and he continues trying to tell the story.
Tell the Conan O'Brien story.
Yeah, this sounds good.
Okay, so I show up early. I go in to be made up, and I see there's a woman there. There's a woman sitting there. There's a woman sitting there, and I say, I say to her, I say to her anytime. So I go in to have my makeup done. And there's a woman sitting there.
Yes.
I go way back with John, and he is the sweetest man. He is the nicest person I've ever met in show business.
He's very funny in such an offbeat way.
And I tell you, it was almost like he was prunking us. It was
yes.
But that's his, that's part of his mystique and part of his act. He's a comic genius, and the work that he and John Benjamin did on Dr. Katz is wonderful. Truly wonderful. This episode surprised and delighted Gilbert. 118, and this was we ran this on September 1st. Hank Garrett.
Yes. Hank Garrett, I mean, we both remember from Car 54.
Yep.
And I had forgotten all the character work he did in movies.
A lot of character work, yeah. And he had Sophia Loren stories, and he had Robert Redford stories.
O.J. Simpson.
Right, he did that movie with O.J. Simpson. The Dominic Chianese's also in.
Oh, yes.
And also the 3 Days of the Condor. And a great storyteller. And who knew he was a professional wrestler?
Oh, yeah. He was, he was terrific.
Yeah.
He had all of his stories. They were like, would talk about old movies he did, and they were so funny.
The
And he was a
story, though.
Which was this? Oh, with Al Lewis.
The sandwich story.
yes.
Yeah, we should play that.
We walk into an Italian deli. We're on break. Got 2 hours before our next shot. We walk in, and a little Italian gentleman sees us, and he's, can I help you, officer? Said, yeah, we want to get a couple of sandwiches. And he said, my father, he says, anything else you like to have with the sandwich? So Al says, yeah, I'll have a soda. And I said, no. And I look at this poor guy. And Al says, well, what do we owe you? Oh, nothing. I like giving my food away. And he gives us the sandwiches. And as it's June or July, as we hit the door, he says, officer, Merry Christmas. He goes, I come back and I put a couple of bucks on the counter and we ran.
That was great.
Yeah.
That Hank Garrett
He told a story about how O.J. Simpson smashed his head into a car.
Yep.
And he was unconscious.
And Sophia Loren was cradling him in his arms.
His wife showed up in hysterics, worried about her beloved husband. And there he is lying on the ground with his head cradled in Sophia Loren's lap and her stroking his head.
Wonderful stuff.
And she stormed off the set.
Yeah. I don't think a guest was ever so happy, too, with the result of the show and the social media feedback. I sent Hank, I sent his manager. He was so gracious. He was so grateful for having done the show.
And,
it was a great experience for all
Orson
of us.
Bean got in touch with us and said, this is the most fan messages he's gotten in the longest time.
That was flattering. It's rewarding when that happens. I try to share the social media responses. Our fans are so generous and write so many great things that I feel it's a shame that we're not actually sharing them. In fact, Bob Einstein called me and just was so grateful that we'd been bringing up all this stuff, and fans were posting clips of Officer Judy and clips that he hadn't seen in years.
And he was another one, just shot out of a cannon.
Shot out of a cannon.
Please welcome a man responsible for some of the best comedy of the last 50 years and one of the funniest human beings on the planet, Officer Judy himself, Bob Einstein.
What an introduction! I know, that was phenomenal. I mean that. That was just a God, it gave me shit chills. And you know, I know is that your sidekick or your producer? Who is that sitting next to you?
I'm both, Bob. I'm both of those things.
Because you had nothing to do with that. Because when I first
it all comes out of Gilbert.
Yeah, when I first met him, he said, "Oh yes, I remember you did the Honeymooners, and you did didn't you do wrestling and some other show, the bisexuals meet the transgenders?" He didn't know shit. And he was reading off a piece of paper.
It's all Gilbert, Bob.
He does no. Well, Gilbert was brilliant, but you do no work. You do no work at all. You come in, you took your coat off, and read some fucking thing that I guess you had a year ago.
Episode 119 was the Impractical Jokers, our friends Q and Sal.
Oh, yes.
And I'll tell you what stays with me from that one was, can I possibly do less time?
Yes, I said that to them. They invited me to do their cruise. And I went there and he was imitating me, and it was true. I said, can I do less time?
You asked his mother.
Yeah,
if you
yes.
could do less time.
Yeah,
which
can
made
I?
no
Is
sense.
there any way I could do?
They're great guys. Episode 121, one of my top 5 episodes, I think. Ron Liebman and Jessica Walter were here. I never had a better time in my life.
Loads of fun.
Yep.
They were like if Stiller and Mira were on. They were like that funny.
And that great interplay back and forth.
I recorded her the other day for Archer.
Oh, you did?
And she rounded the corner, arms up, telling me how thrilled she was with the episode.
Oh, really? Well, we have to give you credit because you booked them.
Well, you booked them. I just gave you the contact info.
Yeah.
But they were happy to
They
do
were
it.
wonderful.
And when I sang the theme to Bye Bye Braverman, she was touched by that.
She was. Well, we went pretty deep in the research with them.
Yes.
And I think, and of all the guests we've had, they seemed really to get the show.
Oh,
and
yes.
what it was we were doing. And Ron took me aside as we were walking in the elevator, and he said, never stop doing this.
Oh, yeah.
And that was, he said we were providing a service, which made me feel good.
He's got that wonderfully bitter sense of
He's
humor.
wonderful.
Yeah.
He's wonderful. And then they sang the Breakfast Club song to
Oh,
us.
yes.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the show, and after we shut the mics off and everything, he leans over and kisses me on the cheek.
I know. That whole episode was a grand experience. And thank you, Frankie, for bringing them into our orbit.
My pleasure.
Here we are, episode 123, Bob Super Dave Einstein.
Oh, terrific.
Probably never laughed so much in my life at just him abusing us.
Yeah. and shot out of a cannon, just like...
Yeah. I like the Red Fox story, but I really like the Joey Heatherton story.
Oh, yeah.
He said, Joey, we have 3 weeks to go. We have 4 episodes committed. We have no guests.
Yeah.
And she said, don't worry about it. She said, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Tony Bennett, and Liberace. And he said, they're locked? They're locked. You sure? Locked. Our first guest was Gary Berghoff. And I had to give him a song. I love that story. He was wonderful.
And you were saying to me, don't start bringing up his
Park Your
father who
Carcass.
died.
Yes, right.
And
Well, I was just hoping you'd save it till the end of the show.
Yes.
Not just as she hit him with it.
And of course I hit him with it, and he told a great story.
Yeah.
And he was terrific.
Yeah. That episode probably got our biggest response out of 130 something episodes. And Bob called me, and he was thrilled, and he had the time of his life. And we'll have him back by popular demand. Episode 124, you couldn't go farther afield from Bob Einstein. Yeah. We ran this on 10/10, October 10th. The wonderful Lee Grant.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Terrific.
One of the few episodes you did research for, might I add.
I know. Whenever I bring up a fact about the guest, you always jump.
Lee,
like, oh my God.
Lee had us over to her home. She's adorable, and she answers us. The elevator opens into her apartment, and she was waiting for us. And Gilbert had spent some time at the library that day,
yes.
which was most impressive. He cared to impress Lee Grant, which was sweet. And she just fell in love with you.
Oh, she did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She wanted to adopt him.
Yeah. She was telling me how adorable I am.
Yeah. And what a thrill. I mean, I'm a kid who, grew up on Long Island. I didn't have parents in show business, to think that I'm walking into Lee Grant's apartment and she's showing me her Oscar.
And she's
pinch me moments.
Yeah.
She's telling us stories about how she was blacklisted.
That was also touching.
And
yeah.
Oh, an experience she had with some French girl.
That was painful. And then you called bullshit on her not sleeping with Warren Beatty.
Yes, yeah. She claims she didn't fuck Warren Beatty. I say she did.
Yep.
But she also had that nice kind of an artistic credo. You know, you do one for them and you do one for yourself.
It was great.
You know,
She talked about the swarm. She came clean about being in the swarm and
she
and
was
Airport
a
77.
lot of fun.
A perfect guest, plug and play, and we adore Lee Grant. Joe Pantoliano, episode 125.
Terrific.
What can you say?
Joey Boots, according to
Joey
Dara
Boots,
Gottfried.
as Dara calls him. I just booked Joey Boots.
At least you got Boots right.
He was another one. He could not be happier to get on the show.
You booked him.
I didn't book him. Dara booked him, but when I mentioned it to him when he was here recording for a project I probably can't say, he lit up. He was like, "Yeah,
And he was so open about all of his neuroses and
Yeah, it
his
was beautiful.
depression.
We're still getting tweets about it. And Joe's following us on Twitter, and he keeps retweeting them.
Really touching.
Yeah. Perfect. Just the sweetest guy. Another one of those guys where you watch him on film, you think, this guy's a little dangerous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a Harvey Keitel.
Right.
You know
Oh,
those
yes,
guys you're a little
yes.
hesitant about meeting them?
Yeah.
And he's a pussycat, and he's a doll. Yeah, loved him.
And so open about every problem he's had, emotional, mental, and really like just a caring person.
Loved
about
him to
it.
death. We got to thank you for that one, Frankie. Episode 126, one of our funniest, Dana Gould.
Oh, yeah.
You guys doing Vincent Price, both
yes.
duetting on something stupid. Dana is a truly funny man and may know as much, if not more, than we do.
Oh, yeah.
About old movies.
Yeah,
and
he's
horror.
a great one to talk to because you don't have to think about anything. You just start talking about old movies and old TV, and he just keeps up and adds to it.
Yep. Tom Savini, episode 127.
Great makeup artist.
Another plug-and-play guest who gave us that fun video tour.
Oh, yes.
Of his home.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a great one. A guy we'd been wanting to get, I'm winding this down, November 17th, 2016. What a year, huh, of guests we had.
God.
Winding down a guy we were trying to get for the longest time, and that's John Amos.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah, another guy who came to play and was happy as hell to be here.
But
Yeah, it was
that's
great.
one of those I will spend the rest of my life dreading that I didn't have him go, damn.
Let's call him up.
Yeah, we should. That's a great idea.
He also sang along with his old McDonald's commercial.
Oh, terrific.
Which was just fantastic. Hal Linden, a really
Yes.
sweet guy, a terrific episode.
and brought his clarinet with him.
What more can you ask from these guys? Hal Linden shows up with his clarinet, his serenade.
He was
It's like you
terrific.
can't believe it's happening. A doll of a guy. And I sent the listener reviews and raves to Hal. Episode 131, Norman Steinberg,
Oh, yes.
who I ran into in the street. And I said, Norman, come do the show. He was a fan. That was a thrill. Started reading reciting episode dialogue back to me. And you got to tell the helicopter story again.
Oh, yes. Yes.
By the way, somebody tweeted me that they heard Buck Henry on another podcast, and he alluded to the helicopter story, but did not tell it.
Oh, we got to get Buck Henry
So we
on.
got to get Buck Henry.
Not right away.
Well, yeah. And then a couple of mini episodes that went very well. Paul was here and helped. The James Bond episodes that we did, people loved.
the James Bond.
Oh, yeah.
I want to end it on Whoopi, which was a great episode and is the current
A
episode.
lot of fun.
Yeah, at Caroline's.
That was another one where Gilbert went exactly where he shouldn't have gone.
I was
Right
saying
at the
how
beginning.
much. I was saying how much I loved Amos and Andy.
After a few awkward moments, she got into the most interesting and personal talk about race and
Yeah.
acting.
Yeah.
It was fascinating.
incredible, and only Gilbert, I think, could have elicited that kind of thing by being so rude.
Oh, yes. and
Makes magic with his inappropriateness.
And in one of the moments that I wish we had been filming, I was talking about how much I enjoy doing Hollywood Squares, and she just gives me a big hug.
That was sweet.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wish people
Yeah.
could have seen that. Yeah. So it was really a wonderful year, 2016. I mean, what a lineup of guests we had. I just want to thank everybody, too. Since this is our last episode of the year, I want to thank I'm not going to thank you, Gilbert, at all. 'Cause we're all carrying you. The great Frank Verderosa, who not only is a peerless engineer and editor, but also is, as you can hear, booking guests, grabbing people in the hallway here at Nutmeg. And we have to thank Paul Rayburn, who does wonderful work, sits in here.
One day you'll have to explain to me what that work is.
Well,
it's truly a pleasure to work with you guys, really, and made even more so by the fact that Gilbert so often expresses how happy he is for me to be here.
We have to thank our new Twitter man, Greg Pear, who's new on board, John Seals, our web designer and our webmaster, the great John Seals, Mike McBeardo McPadden, who runs our Facebook page and is indispensable. Who am I leaving out? I'm leaving out somebody.
Does Dara Gottfried do anything?
Dara Gottfried, of course. We thank Dara. I know I'm going to leave people out, and I'm going to end up kicking myself. I have to thank everybody at Sideshow because we're moving on.
Yeah,
and we're going over to a different company, and we have to thank Rodney Swearingen, who brought us into Sideshow a couple of years ago, and held our hand and introduced us to podcasting and told Dara and I how it was done, and we're forever grateful. Heather Cooney, Maria Spertolozzi, Andrew Stephen, Andrew Byrne, Brian Sussman, Randy Haig, Heather Kavanaugh at Digital Media, who did wonderful work for us, and Brendan Bliss, our animator, who did those wonderful shorts.
Terrific. So much fun.
Brendan's name just jumped out at me. We have to thank Brian Dillon and Mark Gale for doing the terrific Muppet.
Yes.
Not Muppet,
yes.
Excuse me, Puppet.
Yes.
Muppet videos. Muppets is trademarked. That was wonderful. Last but not least at Sideshow, Sean Marek, our friend and our co-producer and editor and LA engineer. And Sean has been an integral part of this show from the beginning. So can't thank Sean enough and Roddy enough and everybody at Sideshow. Of course, John Murray and John Fodiatis are wonderful musicians. And speaking of musicians, the wonderful, terrific Joe McGinty. Our friend Alex Brazel, who helped so much and is a spiritual advisor podcast-wise. Pal Kevin Doherty, who was in here quizzing us. Cliff Nesterman. Cliff Nesteroff. Drew Friedman, of course, as always. Neil Berkeley, making a wonderful documentary about Gilbert. Eddie Marino and Ryan, Eric Fusco and Rob Smentek, who started the Gilbert Gottfried Listener Society, which almost has, I think, 1,000 people or some kind of crazy number on it in just a month's time. Our pal Andrea Simmons, who's such a support of the show. If there's anybody I've left out, I have to, of course, say a bigger and a more emotional thank you to Dara, who keeps this train on the track in spite of her husband. So it was a great year. We're very grateful. We're grateful to all the listeners who make the show go. Danny Deraney and bookers and who else am I? Jeff Abraham and the people who help us book the show, and Bill Porricelli, Jessica Wynn, our photographer, of course, Darren Foster. Of course, our resourceful publicist, Glenn Schwartz, Jonathan Winchell, Scott and Lisa Land, Matt Beckoff, Bert Kearns, Lex Passeris, all the people who help us book guests, Harlan Bowl and Roger Neal, Lance Laurie, the people who've written in such flattering terms about the show, Paul Brownfield and Donald Liebenson, and Jeremy Moran and Nathan Rabin, and the list goes on and on. If I've forgotten anybody, I apologize. And lastly, check out Sean's podcast, Worst Collection Ever, where Sean and his wife Jen talk about their terrible comics collection. So you want to check that out. So if there's anybody I forgot to thank, shame on me, but we'll thank you on social media and in the new year. It's been a great year.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Frank,
yes, pal.
because it's been a wonderful year, I think I've got some music to take us out.
You do?
So I'll rap and then we'll...
Because it's the 70th anniversary of It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, perfect, Frank.
We'll end
You've
the year.
crystallized my thoughts eloquently.
This has been Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast. And one more thing to all of our listeners. Happy New Year!
To my big brother George, the richest man in town. That's a Christmas present from a very dear friend of mine.
Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
That's right. That's right. Attaboy, Clarence.